So today we have a lot to talk about. We are talking about social media, which is a beast in itself. Today we'll be discussing four social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and briefly TikTok. And in true Goldilocks and three bears fashion, we will be providing some recommendations on which one is just right for the professional looking to at least attempt a social media strategy, but you don't have too much room or too much bandwidth. So with that, let's start with an introduction. My name is Gonzalez. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the communication specialist for the Center for Global and Intercultural Study at the University of Michigan. My role is 100% marketing and communications. So I do all the digital print and the digital print design, print marketing materials, all of that. I do the social media and website management. I do event coordinating. I do a lot of things. And if you stick around for the last session, you'll actually get a nice deep dive into my position specifically. And then I'm going to let my amazing co-host introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Wiggins-Gawlik. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a global education advisor with the Ross Global Initiatives team at the Stephen M. Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan, a very nice long mouthful of a title. My day-to-day is program management for both faculty-led programs and exchange programs, particularly in Spain and Latin America. But this year, I also had the pleasure of taking on a lot of our marketing positions, tasks as someone left the role, and of course during the pandemic, tasks getting redistributed. So I am not a full-time marketer, and so you're going to get a great perspective, I think, today on a social media expert, and then someone who is not a social media expert but has had to kind of learn a lot this year and try and drop some strategies. So very excited to be here with you all this morning. A little bit of a housekeeping. If you are not asking a question, please keep your microphone on mute. Please rename yourself to include your pronouns and your institution. We're going to ask that you hold questions until the end of the presentation, unless we said something really confusing or something doesn't make sense. And then the last piece is just, what if we're Zoom bombed? Hopefully not going to happen, but in that case, please notify us and then leave the Zoom room immediately. And we'll be reaching out very shortly with a new Zoom link with a passcode via email, just in case. So hopefully it won't happen, but just in case, we know what to do.
All right, so let's dive in. So I could talk about social media all day. Katie says we only have 45 minutes, so I've got to really condense all of my thoughts that are going through my head today. So why social media? Why is it important to have a presence on social media? This really allows us to reach and engage our targeted audiences, and it creates awareness of our own presence, of what we do, our goals as our office. It helps represent our mission, and it just helps with the outreach and recruitment process as we begin to encourage students to look for international travel. If you're not in international ed, maybe it's academic work. Things like that. There's so much. There's so much within social media, and there's so many platforms that offer a wide range of options. Oftentimes, it may seem like the features are so similar between the platforms, but in reality, each platform is best suited for a number of things, and it's dependent upon circumstances, strategies, audiences, which is probably the biggest one, and purposes. As you can see, the bear,
sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's not a big deal. The bear is asking, how much is too much? And that's a great question. And it's a multi-layered question, because the first question is it necessary for you to be on all of the social media platforms? The quick answer is no, it's not necessary. Is it beneficial for you? Yes, but with the theme of today's conference and wearing too many hats, sometimes adding on extra pressure of being on many platforms is just too much, right? So the whole purpose of this presentation is really just to find one social media platform that's going to be helpful for you and for the audience that you're hoping to reach. Okay. So a few questions you have to ask yourself. Does this hat fit you? Does it look flattering on you? And by that, we just mean, do you have the time for it? Like I said in the previous slide, do you have the time? Do you have the resources to dedicate to this? There are so many reasons to utilize social media, but there are just as many to not utilize it. So like I said earlier, social media is it's this beast. It's a monster that requires feeding, right? Consistency is essential to growing that following, growing your brand and your presence, and for, trying to stand out from everyone else that's trying to push their resources and their content. So really look at these questions, answer those questions, and then figure out if this is the next step. No pressure in social media. So who is your audience? Who are you hoping to reach? I know Besta and Elizabeth touched on this in their presentation before, but it's really important, especially when it comes to social media, understanding who you're going to be, who you're wanting to communicate and distribute your content, those resources to, is going to be a key factor. So is it students? Is it faculty? Is it staff? Is it parents? All of these stakeholders are kind of important to the international education lens as well as other higher ed. So figuring that out is going to be your main priority. And then ask yourself what social networks already exist within your institution and organization, both online or offline. How are they used? Start exploring those social networks. Look at how your university advertises on their own social media platforms. Utilize those people and see what they're doing differently to stand out from the crowd. Lastly, what are you hoping to share on social media? What goals are you trying to achieve? Again, thinking back to that question that the bear was asking, how much is too much? Another layer to that is your content worth the struggle of picking up social media? So do you want to share news and deadline reminders, hosting events and creating student communities, promoting or showcasing programs? If those are some of your options, you're definitely going to have to take a look at see which platform works best for each of those strategies.
So when we think about social media and the beast it is and the many platforms that we have available, we've selected kind of 3.5 main ones that we want to talk about today. So we'll talk about Facebook, Twitter, a little bit on TikTok, and Instagram in particular. So to kick us off, starting with Facebook, this bear is too irrelevant. So the audience that you're going to find on Facebook is mostly millennials and your students' parents. Gen Z is on Facebook, but not really in the sense that probably most of us in like the millennial and older age group, they don't use Facebook the same way that we do and that we did historically over the past decade or so. And so they're there, but they're not using Facebook to network. They're basically just on Facebook to be on Facebook and have a presence there. And even millennials and some older individuals are starting to extricate themselves from Facebook. A lot of my friends say that like, I could delete Facebook tomorrow and not really miss anything. So even older generations past or before Gen Z, I guess, are using Facebook a lot differently these days. So some really helpful questions when you're thinking about, is Facebook the right platform for our office to be on? Because your audience on Facebook is not really going to be your Gen Z students much, it's mostly going to be their parents. Are parents really stakeholders in what you do? And that's a great question. And I think obviously parents are very important to, when we talk about international ed, they're a very important part of that, but are they really the stakeholders? And for most of our offices, I think we would probably say no. And there are some really great ways to involve parents. And there are times when in international education, parents are more of a stakeholder, especially when we're talking about like BIPOC students, minority students, first gen students, where parents really do make up a more sizable portion of that decision-making process for the students. But for the most part, are parents really stakeholders, and is there a particular instance when you really want to be engaging with parents? And those are great questions to ask when you're thinking about Facebook. So the type of content that works really well on Facebook is literary content. So concrete evidence, data-driven information, articles, things like that. Those can support questions that your students or their parents might have and provide support for that. Facebook is really great for sharing news and updates on world events from reputable sources. And it's also really great for things like State Department updates, especially in the pandemic. It can be really helpful to share directly from the official government accounts from a lot of these sources to be able to spread updates and things like that pretty quickly. So a great strategy for using Facebook is using it to create events for your office or your campus. Facebook also can work really well for creating student groups for your maybe outgoing and incoming exchange cohorts. But again, if those students are Gen Z students, they might not be very avid Facebook users or even have a Facebook. So consider that. Facebook also has the opportunity to do lives. And so if you do think that you want to do some like live events with parents, Facebook Lives can be a really great way to engage with them. And Facebook does also offer the opportunity to do paid ads, which can be a really great way to promote something and increase engagement, maybe for an event or a program that you have upcoming. And Facebook's biggest limitation that does make it too irrelevant, as we've mentioned before, is the audience, and just that your Gen Z students probably aren't on Facebook too much to begin with.
All right, so Twitter is too dense. And what we mean by that, it is just so big. If you can think about like hot summers where you go to a public pool and everyone is jumping into that pool, and then let's say your child is in that pool and you don't know where the heck that child is. So what do you do to make sure that your child stands out the most? Maybe you wrap them in like, I don't know, little floaties, you give them like a certain colored shirt. But even then, it's still hard to see your child waving at you from wherever they are in the pool. Twitter makes it so hard for people to really stand out, but it's also so easy to be a part of the conversation as well. So it's a little bit of a gray area. But when Twitter started out, it really was this great way for professionals to really highlight or provide visibility with the work that they were creating. Tweets like this still thrive. Twitter has so many different sub communities that you can really follow and contribute or just keep up with, right? But Twitter has transformed itself into this platform where everyone can be a part of the conversation. So I put just a few examples of hashtags. We've all heard of hashtags. That's been something that's been going on for like over a decade now. I put these in here because these are really, so the first two is something that I probably check on a daily, Black Twitter and Gay Twitter, because those are marginalized voices that I want to make sure that I'm checking into, that I'm listening to, that I'm reading, and that I'm also contributing to the conversation. National Donut Day was last week, so obviously I was using it to see who was giving out free donuts. And because I love Marvel movies, Countdown to Loki was also something I was checking in, which is now streaming live on Disney yesterday. So, but this is, the hashtags are such a good example of how you can set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd. And I'll give you a little bit more examples on the next slide. So some strategies that you're going to want to consider and you're going to want to really think critically on. But first, links are going to be your best friends, right? Because we're so limited in the amount that we can push on Twitter. You're definitely going to want to do links, but you're going to want to make sure that you're using a link shortener just so that it doesn't take up all of your characters. I think what I've found, because what I've done within the last year is I've gone through my social media to see what is actually working for each of my platforms that we have for our office. And for Twitter, it was, if we weren't creating a conversation, it really was hard to get that type of engagement from students or from staff. The only way that we were really seeing engagement was whether or not we were sharing out information on events. So I could count on all of my partnering offices, shout out to you, for retweeting all of that and doubling, tripling, quadrupling the visibility of those events. And then also you tagging my University of Michigan or my college, tagging them on my tweets so that if they saw that the content was worth retweeting, they would retweet it and we automatically get that engagement from what they were getting from their followers. So for us, that's how that worked. It could work differently for your office. You really want, you really need to ask yourself, is an event worth putting it on Twitter? My professional opinion, not really, especially if you don't have a large following. And there are other quicker ways to get your information out there. So if you're just looking to do what I'm doing, I would say don't do it. If you're trying to share resources, is there a way that you can be thought-provoking about it? Oftentimes people want to give their feedback. They want to provide some sort of insight. So can you create engagement by providing those resources? If you're trying to tell a story, I would consider focusing on Twitter threads, and the stories can be, anywhere from student takeovers where they're giving you a story. Maybe it's on race abroad, right? And maybe we have a Black or African American student or a Latinx student telling them a story about a time they felt isolated, or maybe, they were trying to really navigate this identity abroad, and it just either went all the right way, all the wrong way. But something like that can really encourage other students to chime in and say, oh, you know what? I never thought about that. Twitter threads allow people to subtweet, right? So there's a little example right there on the right-hand side of a Twitter thread. So people can jump in on the conversation, they can put in their input, and it just makes for a fun conversation. Utilize other offices. Definitely co-promote that content with accounts, like I was saying with what I do with the University of Michigan and with the College of Literature, Science, and Arts. Be that little fish that attaches themselves to the whale or the shark or whatever. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. I know Elizabeth mentioned in the previous presentation that she constantly works with the college to get more visibility on the kind of content that they're trying to push, like their programming or their scholarships, things like that.
So we just wanted to briefly touch on TikTok because it seems to be taking the world by storm right now. And this bear isn't really a bear. We like to call her Goldilocks. She's a little too precarious. So the audience that you're going to find on TikTok is primarily young folks. About a third of worldwide users are between ages 10 and 19. So definitely when we think about the generations or the classes of students that are going to be entering in the next few years in the work that in our institutions, they will likely be TikTok users. And almost another third are aged 20 to 29. So we're talking about a substantial portion of users below the age of 30. The type of content that TikTok excels with is really fast content, short form. So most folks are limited to 60 seconds in their videos. TikTok is rolling out a feature for influencers and people with larger followings that can do 3-minute videos. But for the vast majority of us, we're going to be limited to 60 seconds. TikTok really excels with trend-based content. So every day things are trending, trends ebb and flow, and it's also really great for influencers. So you'll see a lot of people promoting products or promoting their brand and cultivating that on TikTok. A strategy, if your office really wants to get into using TikTok, is to follow those trends. So find what's trending, put your own spin on what's going on that day or that week. Short video series, I think, can be really great in TikTok. For example, like storytelling through a short video series, part 1, part 2, part 3, etc., can be really engaging. And tutorials or a very quick, like, this is how you find our scholarships, or this is how you apply to this, or these are 3 things to think about when you're considering studying abroad, etc., can be really great kind of fast content. But the limitation with TikTok is the time that it takes to really create that content. So I'm a TikTok user myself. I've been posting videos to my own account, and it takes a substantial amount of time to actually learn how to use the editor and become really familiar with it. The other thing about TikTok is that the videos that tend to do really well are ones that are well edited, well put together, aesthetically pleasing, well lit. So ring lights are really important for a lot of content creation. So it just becomes a bit of a lot when you're trying to create really great content that's actually going to be promoted. Another limitation, which we didn't put on here, is the algorithm as well. So you can't control who sees your videos. Your videos get pushed out sometimes to a For You page, which is kind of like the front page of Reddit, where it's just things that are trending or things that are being newly created. And then also to your followers, but you don't really have control over who TikTok is showing your video to or how much it's showing up. So that's another really big limitation. And then you also risk that because it is such a trendy platform, it is very new still in the world of social media, although it was built off another app called Musical.ly that existed a long time before that. But it's just a little too precarious. It's not owned, like Instagram, for example, is owned by Facebook. It's not owned by kind of this giant conglomerate. It's its own company. And so you run the risk that it could fall out of use pretty quickly, just as quickly as it came to be. So Snapchat is another similar example where Kylie Jenner a couple years ago it was like one of Snapchat's like biggest influencers, and she tweeted one day that she didn't like the update, and then their stock fell 6% and people stopped using it. And so it's just a little bit too precarious. How are you going to bring your followers from another platform and convince them that TikTok is the place to follow you? And no one's really going to follow you on TikTok probably until you have a good amount of content created, convincing them that you're worth following. So for that reason, we probably don't recommend TikTok for the average busy bear. She's a bit too precarious, but if you are interested in TikTok, it is a lot of fun. So if you're looking to have fun and just get out there and do something that's a little more lighthearted to connect to your students, then TikTok could be the place to do that.
Yeah, I wanted to add that Snapchat for our office was such a success when we first started our Snapchat. And I will say that after that update, we lost so much engagement after we spent so much time trying to get buy-in from our students to kind of transfer from Instagram and Facebook to Snapchat. It was rough. So we've since deleted our Snapchat just because it was also becoming too much to handle with everything else that we were already doing. All right, so Instagram is just right. This is perfect for those of you who are just, you know your audience. And I think we can all kind of say that our audience is going to be Gen Z. Gen Z is now in college. That is where they're at. Their parents are also there too. I think some, in my experience, I've seen some faculty and staff also on Instagram. So I think people are slowly starting to grow their little following, but Gen Z is there, and Gen Z are experts at Instagram. And the types of content that Instagram pushes is pictures and videos, and that includes stories, which are about 10 seconds. It can actually be anywhere from 1 to 10 seconds, and then you can have multiple 10-second videos uploaded to your highlights onto your stories, sorry. And you've got Reels, and with NIGTV, which I'll talk about those two a little bit later down the road. But there are a lot of opportunities to create content here and to get all of that information out. I will say just really quickly that Reels is exactly like TikTok. So there's so much that Instagram, mostly because Facebook owns Instagram, so they're always competing against all of the other popular apps. So this is where it's at. So let's talk about some strategy. Some of the strategies that you're going to want to incorporate is exciting, inviting opportunities of engagement. I think Katie had a really great response, to the pandemic in terms of their Instagram presence. She started the Global Kitchen series, which is actually this shareable educational entertainment. And this is the kind of stuff that I personally love seeing on my feed, because that means that I can save that and I can come back to it at another time, right? So in this Global Kitchen series, you've got Katie, the chef, making all these amazing cultural, like delicious meals. And I can save that, and then I'm going to try to make it another time. So that's the kind of content that you want, where students can come back to and see it and engage with it. Definitely, you want those likes, you want those shares, but you also want the saves too, right? You want people to comment. You want engaging conversations to happen. So like with CJUS, when we post pictures of Stephen, when we don't post pictures of Stephen, when we post pictures of students, we see students interacting, like saying, oh my God, that's my best friend. And then they're interacting with each other, and oh, that's the best program on, yes, yay. And so that's the kind of stuff we want to see, right? In regards to Reels, you really want to deliver fast content. And it's not even just Reels, it's all over Instagram. You want people to be able to get something really fast. Students are already spending their whole week absorbing as much information as they can for their tests, for exams. So you really need to be thinking about how fast can you deliver that information. If you have a TikTok, if you have ever spent time on Instagram Reels, you'll know that you can maybe watch 100 videos in 5 minutes, and you know how to change a car tire, you know how to bring your windows down by just using your little clicker, like you know how to do all of these crazy things, take the stains out of your oven. So think about the content that you're pushing and how it can be informational for the people that are looking at your Instagram. Some limitations, really, truly, the only thing is it comes down to link sharing. And I swear, if y'all tell me they've already changed this, I'm gonna, but the link sharing is really upsetting to me because technically the great spot to actually share a link would be in your stories or in your photos. But Instagram does not allow you to hyperlink in the comments, and it doesn't allow you to swipe up like on your stories. That's only for people who have followers more than, I think it's about 10,000 or more followers, allows you to have the little swipe up edition. Another great tool, I see someone, I'm just looking at Jill's questions, making sure I'm not missing anything. So unfortunately, you do have to kind of update that bio all the time, and you have to make sure that you're not forgetting anything. Sometimes I'll put something in the stories and I'll say, oh, click the link in our bio to view the upcoming deadlines for the winter term. And then it might actually just stay there for like 2 months and I didn't even realize it. And how much engagement did I lose when I could have been pushing students to the website the whole time? It's stressful.
All right, we have about 15 minutes left together, and we are going to dig in a little bit deeper into Instagram, and also at the end share our strategies as well. So on Instagram, when you go to post something, it gives you the option to post to your grid or your feed, or your stories. So your grid or posting to your feed is like a digital booklet of your office's vision or mission, or like what you're all about come to life in a visual format. So when we talk about grid, when you go to your profile, and we're going to look in a second at some examples, the photos that you've posted to your feed end up in this grid format on your profile. And so when people go to your profile, they can see kind of like a historical record of everything that you've posted. Whereas stories are much more temporary. They expire after 24 hours. And so those are great for events, sharing quick tips, sharing quick information. And if you're coming to the Canva session this afternoon, we're going to talk about like how to create an Instagram story in Canva. But a great thing that you can do to expedite, so especially if you're wearing a lot of hats and you don't have time to be posting stories all the time, or creating a lot of visual content on a regular basis, is to create a template that then you can save to your phone or your device that you're using to post to Instagram and upload into your stories. And you already have like a template that then you can fill in like a photo and some text, and it might already be branded with your logo and your colors and things like that. So example would be like an Instagram story template is 1080 by 1920 pixels. And so if you have that already saved somewhere, it can really expedite the creation of this content and take a little bit of pressure off of you. So when we talk about managing our grid, and this was actually a concept that Stephen introduced to me, because before I took over our Ross Global Initiative social media last year, I was an Instagram user, but like my profile is on private. I post like photos of my dogs, and I am not like an aesthetic influencer. I use Instagram more like millennials used Facebook in the earlier 2000s. But when you're looking at your grid, something that's really important, because Instagram is very aesthetically charged, and like people on Instagram value aesthetically pleasing content, is to keep your grid clean and keep it consistent. So you want to use high quality photos, and you want to keep your brand consistent. So some examples that I've pulled from some of our favorites here in Ann Arbor. So on the far left, you have the Instagram grid from our Sanger Leadership Center at UMich. And you can see that their colors and like their Michigan maize and blue is very on point. They're probably using some templates because you can see some really similar styles of posts that are repeated over and over that give them really consistent looking content, but save them a lot of time in content creation. In the middle, we have one of Ann Arbor's newest additions, which is the Detroit Cookie Company. And you can tell that their brand is absolutely cookies. You can tell from their grid, it's very consistent. You know what they're all about just by giving a quick scan to the content that they've been posting. And so it is, sorry to make any of you hungry, by the way, but it's very consistent. And then on the far right, we have Zingerman's, which is another Ann Arbor favorite. And Zingerman's knows what they're all about. They're about food, they're about luxury gourmet experiences, they're about bringing the community together, and they have a very particular brand. And so what's really cool about Zingerman's is if you scroll through their Instagram feed, a lot of times they'll pick kind of like a color scheme or a theme for a season, and you'll see that their posts kind of transition on their grid as you scroll from one color to another. So this screenshot is from their post from around Mother's Day and early spring. And you can see that they picked like this turquoise teal color to be like the color that they were being consistent with during that season. So their grid ends up being really aesthetically pleasing and consistent because of that. So when we think about followers, that's another big part of Instagram, because you can be producing all of this beautiful aesthetically pleasing content, but if you don't have followers and engagement, then it's kind of all for naught in a lot of ways. So when you're thinking about growing your followers and finding more followers, using hashtags can be really an easy way to do that and an important way to engage. Don't be afraid to follow your students and even like their content. Just be careful what you're following. Make sure that the things that you're liking are things that are appropriate to be liking from your office. But as students, especially if they see that they're getting a follow from you or you're engaging with their content, they're much more likely to engage back with you. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, that if you just follow students and don't really engage with them, you're going to get a lot less engagement, and the Instagram algorithm is probably not going to show you their content and vice versa very often in their feed, because you're not interacting and engaging very often. You can check to see if each of your incoming classes might have their own Instagram page or account. So for example, at UMich 2024 was our incoming first year students this year. So you can go in and like follow all of them, and they follow you back a lot of times, which is great. Link to your social media and your email signature. This is a great way, especially if you're student facing, that you're consistently kind of putting that out there, like, hey, follow us on Instagram every time you email a student. And then this is a really creative approach actually that our engineering study abroad office here at University of Michigan did, that I was just like, that is so creative. But a couple years ago, they were doing their fall study abroad fair, I think, and they had purchased a bunch of like international pastries and treats from different places in Ann Arbor. And so when students, and they had them at the check-in table, and so students would go to check in and like get their little sticker or whatever at the fair, they'd be like, oh, I want one. And they're like, oh, would you like some baklava? Follow us on Instagram. And then once the student showed that they had followed on Instagram, they were like, here's your treat. So, I mean, I would do about anything for a piece of baklava. So an Instagram follow is a pretty easy way to exchange those goods. So maybe a prize for a follow approach at an event could work for you as well.
All right. So I actually have been noticing that some of you have been writing that you've been utilizing your TikToks on your Instagram Reels, which is great. I think that's a great way to utilize both apps. I do just want you all to keep in mind that, or I would at least recommend that you're still making custom content for those particular social media platforms, just so that students, you actually give them a reason to go to your TikTok and both to your TikTok and your Instagram, right? You don't want them to say like, oh, it's all the same stuff on their TikTok, I'm just going to follow them on Instagram. The idea is to try to grow that following and so that they can see more. They can get more details, and you're seeing a lot of different influencers utilizing this now. They'll post their TikToks to their Instagram stories, and it'll be like swipe up for the rest, and it takes you directly to TikTok. So if you're going to just be recreating content and just reposting it, it might not be as beneficial. So Reels is a little differently than TikTok, only in the sense that it is just, you only get 30 seconds. It's 15 to 30 seconds, but it works exactly like TikTok. As someone mentioned, the editing tools in TikTok are probably a lot better. Reels was created to compete with TikTok, but Instagram doesn't really seem to do well when they start competing with popular apps. IGTV, for example, this was kind of in response to YouTube, where you could create, at the very least, a 1-minute video. At max, you can do 15 to 60 minutes, 15 from your phone and 60 if you're uploading from a web platform, like a cloud-based platform that helps you post to social media. Both of these are, I think, when you start getting comfortable with your social media, I think can be essential for your social media strategy. I also noticed that someone said that they utilize their student workers. I think that's a great idea. If you are all in a position where you have student workers are really going to be super beneficial to your social media plan. And it's also going to take a lot off of your plate, knowing that you have students who are familiar with the platform. They know the ins and outs. They're updated on the latest trends. So yeah, definitely look into this when you start getting more comfortable, navigating Instagram. Okay, Instagram Live. We're just going to talk about some pros and some cons. I'd love to hear y'all's comments in the chats if y'all have tried Instagram Lives and if it's been successful or if it's been, no one's really attended. I can speak from my experience that it's been like surprisingly attended, but by that, I just mean like 5 or 6 people came, and I'm just shocked that one person came. So we've done it a couple of times. It hasn't, I think, some of the great things about doing those Instagram Lives is that you can save those videos. So like, it's not, even if the students can't catch it live, they can come back to it and they can see it on your Instagram. It'll show up on their feed when they're swiping through their Instagram. You can do it from anywhere throughout the world, which I think is awesome for us international education professionals. I can just, it excites me knowing that, oh, well, maybe we can get someone from Japan to give us a little walking tour, talk to us a little bit about the culture. They can go anywhere. And now one of the awesome, cool features about Instagram Live is now you can have up to 4 people on live. So this is going to be really cool if you're really trying to create like a table talk discussion, if interviews, things like that. I am actually just realizing that IGTV has now been removed from the Instagram app. If it's still there for you, it's going to be gone fairly shortly. Katie and I just realized this a couple days ago that it is now fully removed. Last year, they made the plan to make it its own separate app. So they're going to be ushering out the IGTV button from the Instagram app fairly shortly. Anyway, sorry, back to pros and cons. So some cons with live. Engagement is definitely limited to whoever is online. Timing really has to work for your audience. I think one of the things that maybe my office could have done more is spent more time advertising the live event. And what's really helpful, and if you don't already have this on your Instagram, change your Instagram account to a professional account so that you can view those insights. And Instagram will actually tell you the times and the days that your followers are actually online. So that can help you schedule events a little bit better. It doesn't come with a ton of analytics, but there are some analytics that might be able to help you, gauge that engagement. If you're not consistent, followers don't engage. I don't know if a lot of you have a lot of followers on Instagram that go live a lot, but for me, the ones that do go live, they're always going live. Maybe it's like once a week, twice a week. You really want to build up that consistency. So if you're going to start something, finish it. And by finish that, I mean, keep going, like keep trying. And you can do maybe like plan for 5 virtual live events and test it out. If it doesn't work by the end of those 5, don't do it again. By no means am I saying that you should just keep doing it and it'll get better, because sometimes it may not get better, unfortunately.
All right, so in 90 seconds, Stephen, tell us your CJ's Instagram strategy.
Okay. Okay, all right, okay. So right now, CJIS did make the decision to hold off on posting during the pandemic. But in a typical normal year, previously, pre-COVID, we would have been posting about 1 to 2 posts a week. In the summer, that actually really increases a lot. Typically, it is student focused. We spend the whole year soliciting photos from students going abroad from every term. What's really helpful for us is that our office works really closely with the scholarship office for a scholarship, particularly for our program. So we actually work together to collect like photos for our print digital materials. So we have like a scholarship requirement where students can choose to either take over our Instagram, which I'll talk about briefly too. They can submit photos, they can write something, or they can attend our fair. That has been so helpful with being able to find content. So if you do have a scholarship or anything else like that, try to really utilize that. Takeovers sounds a little dangerous. I know we haven't really had any bad, no, I can't say we've had any bad experiences. No, I can say we've never had any bad experiences with the takeover. It has been so amazing. We've had the most engagement from students, prospective students, incoming students, like with so many questions coming into our DMs about those programs that they're seeing on our stories. These students are essentially just showing us their day-to-day lives. So yeah, utilize stories to encourage engagement. You can poll, you can ask people questions. Follow or like approach. Katie kind of touched on this a little bit, and I just wanted to show you an example of the incoming year, which is UMich 2025. Sometimes I'll go in, I'll click that followers button, and I will go down the list, and I will either follow or I'll look at their profile and like a picture. Obviously, be careful what you're liking, like Katie said. But that has also been so beneficial with being able to just create that awareness, getting it out there that we are here. They can browse our profile, they can browse our website, and learn more about us when they get to campus. Was that 90 seconds?
It was a little longer, but we're okay. All right. So our Ross Global Initiatives Instagram strategy, prior to the pandemic, if you were to go on it, feel free to follow us. Our handle is Ross_Go Global. So prior to the pandemic, our content on social media was very student focused, similar to CGIS. Lots of student testimonials, photos that students had submitted. However, during the pandemic, it didn't feel right to be posting student travel photos when we were all stuck at home. Travel was highly discouraged. So we shifted our strategy to think about how can we broadly promote global engagement and international content that is not travel focused. So during the semester, we average about 1 to 2 posts a week. And there are some weeks where we don't get it, or some weeks where we have maybe 3 posts, but that's about what we sit at right now. One of my strategies, I love like graphic design, and I love, I'm doing the Canva session in a couple hours, and you'll see there that it's really fun for me to create like this aesthetically pleasing content. And so I do a lot of close adherence to our maize and blue. And then I also have like a turquoise color as an accent. And so those colors show up a lot in our Instagram grid to keep things as consistent as possible and branded for UMich. And then Stephen mentioned our Global Kitchen series, which is something I've had a lot of fun doing. You can see in the bottom middle of our grid, there's a paella video from the National Paella Day in March. And so these are videos that are really similar to like a BuzzFeed Tasty. And I love to cook. I just thought it would be a lot of fun to, while we were all stuck at home, create some engaging, easy recipes from around the world that can be made without having to search for really obscure ingredients, or even ingredients that were hard to find on grocery shelves at the beginning of the pandemic. And so this has been a really fun way for me to learn new cuisine as like a content creator. It's been amazing, and like a very good mental health break from maybe some of the stresses that international ed has brought this year. And having to cancel programs and all of those things. But it's also really engaging, and it's definitely our highest engaged content on our Instagram is when we roll out these videos. So I'll be rolling one out in a couple weeks about Korean corn cheese, which is something that I had no idea that existed until I was searching for different recipes. So it's been a lot of fun. Just to kind of quickly touch, schedulers can be tremendously helpful in keeping your social media plan organized. So I use later a free version, which is a little bit limited, but works perfectly for an office of one social media person. Buffer is another platform that has a free plan. And if your office is willing to pay for a plan, Canva does a scheduler from their pro account, which is less than $20 a month. I think it's $12 or $13 for a month. Flume, if you have a Mac-based system, is also great, and INS Tracker. And these are all about less than $20 a month. So great options for resources to help make your lives a little easier, since we're all very busy professionals wearing too many hats.